And they'll gauge eventually. Let's start an episode right here. Welcome back again, friends, to another episode of Tactical Enlightenment. Our YouTube channel is dedicated to all things Bannerlord related, and we continue to help you with Nord units. And here we go, Nord tactics in the DLC in WARSAILS. We just got attacked. We essentially set this scenario up to test and rather to prove that the Nords can maul the Khazaits in the open field. We're not going to fight at the back of the wall and stuff like that. And you get a little idea of our army composition. I have a little different philosophy than a lot of people on the Nords. I think you want to use your Huskarls mainly as defense. At some point or other, obviously they can be offensive weapons, but until you have a large amount of them, I think they're better used on defense. Now, ironically, we're going to use one of the Nord's tier 3 units here on offense. That is because they throw very high-end javelins, and they're cheap, right? These guys are very cheap compared to the Huskarls. They upgrade eventually to the Ulfhedin, the Ulfhednar, but these guys are going to be a valuable component of this army, and let's jump right in. Let's talk about some tactics. Let's talk about some fundamentals. Now, right, you could obviously just sit on the beach, right? That would be the safest thing to do here. We're not going to do that, obviously. We're not going to cheese our way to victory. We want to give you guys tactics that'll work in all scenarios. Now, that said, we can still use the landscape here, right? There's various hills and angles we can play with. Horse archers will come over that ridge there in the center. That'll mean they're a little bit closer by the time our archers unleash hell. I think that'll work nicely. Now, 2, 3. I think we'll do 6 divisions, and I'll explain this as we break it down, but it's 4 divisions of infantry and 2 divisions of archers. I do that because I like to separate my shield archers, the sky gods chosen, from the rest of the archers. They'll run out of ammo first, despite the upgrade to their quivers, and they are very capable on offense with the sword. Now, there's your skirmisher division, right? It looks, you know, they're mirrored. It's perfect. Those are all the Nord spear warriors. They're tier 3 units. And there's your Huskarls, right? We have about 40 or 50, maybe 30 or 40 Huskarls in this army. And that's enough, right? I think that's going to be enough to play the defensive end. These guys absorb arrows like no other unit in Bannerlord. They basically are the ultimate defensive units, and we're going to use them like battleships here. First and second division will be very high-end infantry, hence the Huskarls. The third division is your shock troops, and we are going to use the shock troops, but they'll be used later in this battle. Now, assign some captains here, and you always want to have the correct captains, right? Typically for a shock troop division, units with no shield, I like one of 2 types of banners. I like movement speed, so they can get to whatever they want to kill quickly. Or, if you're facing like Khazait, I would recommend decreased taken ranged attack damage, because they're going to get shot. Now there's our 4th division, and the shields gleaming beautifully in the snow and the moonlight. There's enough light here despite the fact that it's dark, although let me know in the feedback if you can't see what's going on in this battle. I understand that for some people maybe their device is not as bright as mine. Everybody's gamma and whatnot is different. You might be watching this in a car, on a phone or something like that. So please leave in the feedback. No more night battles. Sometimes you try to set these up and the game does not cooperate, right? It just threw us in here. The Khazait decided to attack at night, right? We can't tell them, hey, would you mind attacking us tomorrow morning, right? They don't really cooperate. All right, so 6th division, we're going to hold fire initially, right? This skirmisher division, and look, there's like 60 Nord spear warriors in there. Now, that also means that this army is kind of cheap, right? If you make an army of tier 5, tier 6 units, very expensive. But this army here with 70 tier 3 units, at least 70, probably a lot more because we have a lot of the Nord tier 3 archers, it's going to be a lot cheaper to field on the battlefield. What we're essentially doing is we found a hidden gem in the rough. Almost as soon as I saw those units, I was like, wow, these are good units. They're very versatile. They have a spear, a shield, a sword, and really good javelins. It's quite a combo. All right, now I know that was a blur. I will give you some overhead perspectives. We will slow this down. I'm going to spend 7, 8, 9 minutes on this battle here because this is one of the fundamental difficult things that players struggle with, and that is facing a large army of horse archers. They have almost as many horse archers as our whole army, but we've got tactics, and we know we've got a good chance to win despite that. You can see the power bar favors them. They actually, oddly enough, they have a bunch of infantry, but Nords chew through infantry too, right? If you had to say what is the greatest weakness the Nords have, it is to pure archers or skirmishers. So I imagine, ironically, the biggest difficult thing the Nords will face in Bannerlord will be Britannia. Maybe the Aserai, but by that stage you've conquered the whole map. Now who are these guys following me here? I'm a little confused. 6th, 3rd. The 3rd Division is shock troops, and note that they're mixed with the archers at the beginning here, right? In fact, the 6th Division, this line of skirmishers, they're just here in a spread formation, holding out their shields. Now, I can't tell... Oh, we got a faux pas here, or foobar or something. We got something fucked up here. I've got 2 divisions of infantry that I did not mean to set up, the 7th and the 8th. So we can just combine these units. I did not mean to do that. Let's see here. It looks like they're shock troops. They're kind of following me. No, not mount horses. Can't divide them for some reason. That won't click. So we got a tiny bit of a snafu in this episode. Bear with me here. You know what we can do? We can just... Yeah, that does not work. We could just take these guys and send them to the back of the formation. You guys have been naughty. You did not go to the division you were assigned to. You guys are kitchen patrol. All right. So what's happening, right? Most of the arrows are finding our 6th Division, 1st Division, and 2nd Division. Right? These tough shield Nords are taking the brunt, right? These shields, these spear infantry, they're tier 3, they're doing pretty good on defense, and of course the best units in the game on defense, the Huskarls, right? These guys are just snickering while they're being shot at. They're like Napoleon's old guard when the Cossacks were attacking him, just kind of like, okay, dude, good luck. And the Khazate are not circling here. This is something guys have mentioned. It's basically a phenomenon. Sometimes they circle, and sometimes they do this sort of back and forth skirmishing in front of you. Well, if they do that, I recommend you move in for the kill. I recommend you move up these battleships, move up your skirmishers, move up your archers, and see what the enemy does, right? Critically, we have shields in front, so we're okay moving up here, right? All these little skirmisher spear warriors are holding up their little shields, and most importantly, of course, our Huskarls. Look at that shit. There's 5,000 arrows in there, and I haven't heard any of them die, right? They're just absolute beasts. Looks like we just lost one. All of those Khazate arrows are just filling up our trophy shields. At some point or other, all those Huskarls will have those shields on their mantelpiece saying, that was those bitch-ass Khazate in 1096 where they tried to kill us with arrows, and they'll laugh over a nice dark beer. Or whatever the Nords drank, maybe some skull. Alright, so their cavalry is kind of charging here. What I want to do is engage with shock troops and these skirmishers, right? These little skirmishers here can come up. I'm still holding the line with the Nords. You notice I'm not charging with the Huskarls. We're going to bring the shock troops up as well. But so far, so good, right? We're just kind of skirmishing, and it helps, right? The landscape is helping us here. The Khazate is sort of running into those rocks. They've brought their infantry down, but I don't think that's going to work well for them. Now, they have archers there shooting us as well. Now, this is really good. Their archers are conflusticated, and they're basically running right into the mass of our troops, right? So we're going to stick our infantry up on that ridge, absorb even more attention from their different divisions here. The shock troops are charging, and the skirmishers can be told to charge, but notice what a lot of them are doing. They're just standing there holding their shield. That is because they are true skirmishers. There they go. And what they'll do is they'll hold their shield up while they're being shot, and then when they're not being shot, they let fly their javelins, right? It's a very effective little unit because they're basically defensive until they sense the moment is right. Now, we can't see very well, but I'm sure there are javelins flying in there drilling troops. In fact, I just saw one fly in there. It's a little bit difficult to see. Now, the enemy infantry charged here, so now I'm charging with our Huskarls, so basically allowing the enemy to be attacked from behind. Now we got this division, confused division here at the back. And it's definitely a little chaotic, but we're starting to run them up the hills. Our archers are largely unmolested back here. Our infantry's pouring up the hill. our shock troops are moving forward, and it's a good sound, right? It's the sound of Khazate dying here. And I don't see their archer line. They must have gone over the ridge, which is actually fine, right? That's allowing us to butcher everything down here in the valley. 18 horse archers left. This battle is over. Just shot another guy off his horse. And we'll look at the death spam. It'll be really interesting to see if my theory is right, that the Nords are great defensive units, and these little skirmishers are great offensive units. And what are we looking at here? A 3-to-1 kill ratio, right? Despite the fact that we're very significantly outnumbered. And there you go, right? 32 deaths. They had 90 kills. This is a tier 3 unit in this battle with a 3-to-1 kill ratio. That is beautiful. They're cheap. They're versatile. I can't say they're tough, right? They're weak. We got 36 upgrades, but I don't think we're going to upgrade them, at least not right away. I would recommend you just, especially in the mid-game, keep some of those, right? It'll help us start recording right here. We are going to get attacked. Now, we need to also include a mid-game Valandian battle, preferably one with lots of cavalry, because that's going to be something you also face. One of the things that most players have noticed is that the Valandians expand very aggressively into Nord territory in your campaign.
It's been a while.
That's going to be a thing for you. This guy's suicided. Not quite certain what that's all about. But we're going to siege this castle and find ourselves a nice Valandian battle, preferably with a good mix of heavy cavalry. Right, the Nords should be, in theory, really good at fighting the Valandians. And just what the doctor ordered. It's probably a tall order here, 664. They've got a lot of cavalry. They've got some high-end cavalry and infantry. But you know what we say on the channel, right? Fuck it. No guts, no glory. We can do a few upgrades here. I've been hesitant to do upgrades because I didn't want to have too powerful an army, but outnumbered almost 2-to-1 here. We'll just kick a few of these. Now, notice I'm not upgrading the Spear Warrior, right? Again, I really like these units, and we're trying to demonstrate them here. That's not to say that the Tier 4 and the Tier 5 aren't better. I just think for the bang for their buck, those little Tier 3 Spear Warriors are outstanding. All right, we'll heal up just a little bit here and take this force on. Now we're going to run, let's do a triple square against the Valandians. Where the most important thing is going to be absorbing cavalry charges. So let's also, where's our other infantry dude? We want to change some banners. It would be optimal, I'm trying to think. This guy, that's a shock troop. We want to have shock troop captain, but I think this guy right here, it says decrease taken ranged attack damage. Let's give him, let's take his clothes off, and then let's give him the decreased, we have a decreased charge damage. We got that from Halthadar when we joined the Nords. 20%, right? 20% reduction in that initial heavy cavalry charge and all subsequent charges in the battle. Heavy cavalry now, especially Valandia, is quite dangerous if you're not prepared for it. Squares, shield wall, and making sure your units are not spread out is the key. Of course, we will cover cavalry tactics, anti-cavalry tactics, how to use cavalry. We will cover every single component of Bannerlord that I can talk about over the course of the next month, 3 months, 6 months, as we continue to explore the DLC. And then, in 2026, we will be covering War Elephant tactics. Do I know something you guys don't? Well, I can't tell you. We'll leave that little excitement in your brain there. All right, so first, second, let's do first, second, and sixth will be infantry with shields. This again is the setup I would recommend, and we're going to try to use this landscape. I see trees. Anytime you have any trees, even if it's 2 trees, you want to use them. Our first and second division again will be Huskarl / shield biter divisions, basically your tough infantry. Sixth will be skirmishers, and I don't actually see. Oh, they're in there, the little skirmisher guys, right? Our spear warriors. You know, you wish they were tier 5 and you'd have a dynamite tiers, you know, it'd be something like the Aserai veteran infantry. In fact, it's almost an identical unit to the Aserai veteran infantry. It's just a tier 3 sword, spear, shield, javelins. Now look at these trees, right? Anytime you have a block of trees like this, let's put our weakest army archers in here. Look at this, like almost none of these guys. Here, let's get the shields into the 4th division. We've been talking about that in this series. We have a tough archer division and a weak-ass archer division, but let's give them all a tree to hug, right? That way they're protected a little bit from cav charges. This little skirmisher division over here that's in a square, those are those spear infantry, and they will get skewered by cavalry. They're not great infantry, but if they have some trees, that'll help slow down the enemy charge. Third is shock troops. We're just going to keep them a little bit back. And then your 2 squares, different than most other kingdom battles, because you want to intercept their cavalry, right? I'm basically going to shove infantry squares into the enemy's face. So the first and 6th is on the wings for cavalry charges, and the 2nd we will shove in the enemy infantry face. Now, if they bypass the 2nd, we can use it offensively, like the last battle, the battle against the Khazate. If you have Unison square and the enemy runs right by it, have those guys attack behind the enemy, right? That's why squares are so deadly. All right, we'll try to do this with some slow-mo. Get our captains assigned here. I will try to walk you through it. Note that we put the guy with the reduced charge damage on our weakest units. That way those guys don't get charged into oblivion. Those guys in the trees over there. That's a little bit light. These squares are a little small. This one's definitely too small. You want to have your squares about 35, 45 units, somewhere in there. This one is bigger, the 6th Division. That's because I'm hoping to break that square flank and then use those skirmishers, right? Have them unleash. Initially, basically, their job is to absorb the cav charge, then throw javelins. And look at these guys, right? Those guys like, oh, the Nords look like the Sturgeons. Fuck no, those guys look amazing. I guess I'm just Tail World's cheerleader. I think the Nords look great. They got all kinds of new armor. The Ulfhadnars. They just, and now that they're getting boosted, right? They've had a couple different patches that boosted them. I think the Nords are pretty damn good. I think they could probably use, you know, a little bit more of a boost. Especially because I think people are going to be surprised how rare sea battles are in Bannerlord, but I think they're going to be still pretty damn deadly. The whole idea is they're deadly on the water. Well, if 98% of your battles are on land, that's a problem. And look at, of course, our shield guys are absorbing more arrows for their trophy shield. Throw that up on the mantle as well. You hear that pleasant sound too, just clink, 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 as those matte shields just accumulate arrows with very little effect. All right, so they are sending a big infantry vanguard down the middle. We're going to watch the cav charges on the sides. There's a lot going on here, and I will zoom in with we can use the RTS mod to zoom in a little bit. We can slow it down. They've got kind of a bunch of Vanguard Ferris cavalry here, sort of skirmishing. But it's the big cav wing charges, right? They have one on both sides. Here they come. Let's watch this shit, right? They charge the center a little bit. They come in hot and they come in couch lines, right? They come in with spears ready. They knock units around a lot more, but we absorb that like champs, right? And now they're kind of slowed down. They're being shot. They're going to go through and they're going to charge some of our archers. There's no way to avoid that, but we absorb that like a champ. Now, here's what I was talking about before. They just ran right by our square here. Well, they are dead men, right? Because they're charging shock troops and tough infantry, and now we can move in tough Huskarls behind them. They're going to have a very bad day. So 3rd Division charge, right? Just in there and tell them to kill. The 6th Division can be told to spread and fire. That's the skirmishers on the far side. I'll try to talk a little slower here. Sometimes guys are overwhelmed. So the 2nd Division here that was in a square is now behind the enemy. Meanwhile, our shock troops are charging. The skirmishers are over here told to fire and charge. Again, we held fire. What's this guy? There's like a naked, he's got no shoes. Oh, you know what that is? That's a Corsair. He's one of the sailor dudes. All right, so the enemy's stacked up on our shock troops. We like that. Skirmishers are moving in behind them. And now we have our Huskarls moving in behind them as well. Now, here's one more thing we can do, right? We have this tough... Oh, these guys, this square out here, by the way, keep it out there, right? There's at least one square you want to keep out there, and I'll explain that in a second. But look at these archers. These archers are right here. Here's what I'd prefer you did. You're attacked by a bunch of infantry. Tell them to hold fire and aim them, click them into the enemy territory, into where the enemy is, all these landing infantry. Once they're there, charge. And what that'll do is that'll add all of those tough swords and shields, 140 weapon skill. Those archers very quickly transition to solid infantry. They're not great, but they're very solid. And your combined assault here, right, all the little gray bubbles there of the Nords is going to obliterate this Valandian force. You can see how deep the infantry line there is with the archers and the shock troops. The 5th Division's getting trucked in the trees a little bit, but the trees are probably helping. And this last thing I want to mention, you always want to have at least one division of Nords facing a lot of, oh shit, don't get couch lanced. You're lucky there, dude, he missed. So you want to have at least one division of shields facing the enemy. Right? In this case, I've got that Huskarl division out in front. That is because they're going to continue to absorb arrows. Right? The enemy crossbow are firing away. While we're fighting the enemy back here, we don't want them just peppering our troops in the back. So you keep a division of Huskarls, these Medal of Honor winners here, absorbing arrows, just plink, 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 makes that satisfying sound. And that's absorbing a huge amount of damage that your other units would be taking. We can start moving up here because the cavalry's all but butchered back there. At this stage, once you're moving in on the archers, I'd recommend you start doing concentrated move-ups, right? Don't just charge here, because guys will shoot. Archers that are on charge will shoot at like 200 units, 200 meters. Don't do that, right? Have them physically move up. Try to keep them behind your shield wall lines, but have them move up aggressively. And this fucking battle's over. I don't know how many archers crossbow they have left. Not very many. 170. We're going to be able to flatten these boys. All right, the Nords are made to maul crossbow. They're starting to backpedal. We may have a little task here at the end of this battle. I think they're routing, though. I think they've seen enough. They've seen enough impervious shields. They're backpedaling here. We can hasten their retreat as they get the beat down here from a berserker. Kill them, boys. And there you have it. A couple of very significant mid-stage, mid-game battles with the Nords and highly successful victories here, right? The Nords, there's a lot of people saying on Reddit and whatnot, the social media circles, that the Nords are really weak. They have gotten significant improvements in the 1.34 patch and the 1.37 patch. By the time you watch this, it might even be improved again, right? Because a lot of people think they might need one more little vitamin pill. But this is pretty damn resounding, right? 140 losses, 450 kills in a battle we're outnumbered. Hard to argue with those results. Again, I observed the Spear Warriors doing pretty well, right? Almost a 3-to-1 kill ratio. Of course, the Archers raked, right? We all know that. Archers are the best units in Bannerlord. But there's your recipe, friends. All right, I got to get to work. I'm a firefighter. I'm actually on shift today. That's how dedicated you fellas are. I am actually doing this. I'm kind of whispering because my wife is sleeping 2 rooms over. So I got to get to work, but we're going to do more guides. We're going to continue to cover the Nords. I will not sleep until you guys are successful on the battlefield. You know you can come by our channel, ask questions, hit our Discord. Please subscribe if you want to see more, right? Please hit that like button on the way out, and I will see you friends next time.